All right. How you doing there, Mr. 411?
Doing great, Zach. How about yourself?
Doing wonderful.
Man, it's great to be in the building. We welcome everybody to the Sports Brothers Show. He is Zach. I'm Mr. 411. Today is September the 27th. The year is 2022. Today we're going to cover week three of the NFL. And what a week it was. A lot of action, a lot of upsets, by the way, too, according to the bookies out there. So we're going to dive into week four. So Zach and Mr. 401 is going to get down here for the next hour. Zach, you know the
Yep.
tradition. Are you ready?
I'm ready, and so is Troy.
All right. Sports Brothers, here we go.
And we're back.
That's right. We're back. Before we get rolling, please do the following.
And it goes without saying that's your favorite part.
It is. And then, just in the previous show, in the other studio, at the 401 Sports World Fantasy Show, we did not, the producer did not get to play that. And the panel was asking Mr. 401, hey, what happened? Why we didn't hit the like, subscribe, and notification button? But we did mention it several times. So we thank everyone who has already done it. Pass the word on to those who, have not, and so on and so on. Because every time you do that, it helps Mr. 411. It helps Zach. It helps all the listeners out there. It helps everybody out here who's on the grind, doing things out here. So please help us. It doesn't cost you a thing. Just take a look at the graphic, Doesn't cost you anything, to give a little support. Just give a little bit of your time. We're not asking for anything, but just a little bit of your time. We thank you so much. And we thank the Jack, that's Blackjack TV, for simulcasting all of our shows, especially the Sports Brothers.
Thank you very much. We love you there, Blackjack TV.
There it is. All right, Zach, man, we gotta dive into this stuff, man. So week three, my goodness, league's going by fast.
Yes, it
Um
is.
it's
That's
it's
no lie.
it's flying by. It does feel like that one game was played, but of course it wasn't. So, man, so much action. And we're gonna move around the league, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll stop at certain locations, based on our production meetings. So there'll be a couple places that we're gonna stop and dive into some more games. But definitely, man, week three, what a week it was. Zach, let's start off with two of the undefeateds right now, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Miami Dolphins. And in Philadelphia, my goodness, man, they're just putting a hurting on the Commanders. At one point in time, it was 323 yards to -1 in the passing game at one point. But the Eagles are now 3-0, so they're looking very good. Um, Another game here where we're going to get to a stopping point right quick is again the quarterback on the right. Okay, on the right of the screen here. Both these quarterbacks played at the University of Alabama at some point in time. We know Hurts also played at University of Oklahoma, but the Dolphins are 3-0 as well. And man, they pulled an upset over the Buffalo Bills and actually have first place right now in the AFC East. And there's a lot of teams that were definitely looking at Buffalo as being the team as a Super Bowl favorite, including myself. But Zach, let's talk about this matchup. Dolphins, Bills.
All right. Uh, I'd say first, I kind of talked about this a while back, and it'll come up with another team. A like Tyreek Hill changes how you have to play. I say that as a guy that used to guard wide receivers. You have to shift your coverage to guard Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill being there has opened up things for the offense. Jalen Waddle looks like people will say it's because he's a second year player, and that is part of it. He's grown, he knows the system better, though this is a new system, so I should say he's more acclimated to the NFL. But Tyreek Hill gives you more space. You get more favorable coverage with if you're Jalen Waddle, and you have to pick and choose. And same thing for Tua. It's gonna make the read somewhat easier for you. So that would be the first observation. Next, it it's very interesting, and I don't know if this was legitimate or Buffalo's using this as an excuse, but they seem to be very gassed, and the humidity seemed to affect them terribly. So I guess Belichick was pretty smart to try and bring the Patriots down there early during week one to help them get acclimated. Uh, but I I'm not shocked by this, only in the sense of the Bills have a thing with me. They can be loose with the ball. Uh, they had turnovers in the first few games, but it didn't matter because they were able to overcome that. But I think when you get into a playoff atmosphere, playoff type games, possessions are at more of a premium. And the fumble that Josh Allen had at the beginning of the game, when it looked like you were kind of taking control, it gives Miami a short field and they get to go in from inside their 10 to score. That ended up being a big factor in the game. And I think the league needs to stop crowning these individuals. Like the league is more quarterback friendly. We know that. The rules have been set up now that if you're a wide receiver, you're going to be better as a wide receiver. You had Jalen Hurts up there on the screen also, and they're talking about the amazing stats that he's putting up. The league is kind of set up fantasy wise for you to get numbers if you're a quarterback or if you're a wide receiver. You're going to get those numbers. So just because you get numbers, we don't need to get all up in arms over that. We need to look at playoff victories. And at the end of the day, Josh Allen has gotten the Buffalo Bills to a AFC Championship game, but there's still stuff for him to do for us to have him as great as people have him now. He's getting me some great fantasy numbers for my team, but fantasy numbers and actual quarterback wins are something different. So Buffalo needs to this feels like this is more what the Buffalo Bills team is like versus what they were the first two games. So not shocked. Good victory for Miami, but the season isn't over. Bills can still come back and win the division and make it to the Super Bowl. But
Well, yeah,
go
and
ahead.
and and this is the NFC. I mean, the AFC East. And over the years, Miami has done things like this. They've beaten northern teams early in the season. If you notice, they Miami wears their white uniforms. They're all white at home, especially early in the season. The first, the summer part of the season, and then the early fall. Because it does get hot, it does get humid. They make sure
Yeah.
that they make sure the visiting team is standing in the sun. Forcing the other team to wear dark uniforms, stuff like that. So yeah, that does come into play. So they take advantage of that geography. And as you stated, Buffalo has a chance at a rematch. And late in the season, the reverse effect. If Miami has to go to Boston and play the Patriots, or if they have to go, up to Buffalo, up there near almost in Canada and play, if they have to play a December game or a late season game up there, so there's it works both ways. But Miami did play hard. I think statistically, Buffalo played well. I mean, statistically, they were the better team. But as you stated, there was some key turnovers there, a bad throw by Allen late in the game. You mentioned that in our production meeting about a pass that he threw right into the dirt. So there's some things that they can learn from this situation. And Zach, I would like to take a moment, just show a couple illustrations of late in the game situations. Now, this first video, take a look at, and this is in 1991. So we're going to go back to the time machine, Zach. 1991, late in the season, Atlanta Falcons at the Dallas Cowboys. And both teams were 10-5 at this point. Both teams were going to make the playoffs, but whoever wins this game pretty much is going to be in a better position, if you will. But watch what happened late in the game on this drive, and watch what Andre Rison did when he needed to go out of bounds.
Then he hit Bad Moon Rising. He decides to forget the extra yards, get out of bounds, smart move.
I mean, couldn't say it any better, right? Now
Correct.
let's take a look at McKenzie late in the game on Sunday.
Time to go. Second down and 20. Allen up, grab, gets away. Oh my goodness, how did he escape? It goes after McKenzie. He'll drive and dance. The clock continues to tick. He picks up 11. The clock is at 5. The clock is at 3.
Okay, so we saw the difference there where Rising decided to lose yards and get out of bounds and stop the clock. McKenzie turned up. So in my opinion, I think McKenzie should have angled himself and just get out of bounds at that point. Probably would have been a better decision, in my opinion. And then it led to this, Zach.
Allen went for 401 through the air. They ran out of time in the first half. They run out of time in the end. And the offensive coordinator, Dorsey.
I mean, I'm not going to put it on McKenzie. That video tells me enough. And if you hear, he said ran out of time in the first half. That seems like tactical stuff. Those are the little things that when you get in a game that is a one-score game that come up versus when you're in a blowout, you don't have to worry about stuff like that. And my uncle always told me back in the day, little things lead to big things. If you can't take care of the little things, how you going to take care of the big things? As I said, emphasize once again, said ran out of time in the first half too. So,
yes, sir.
And Dorsey acting like a maniac in a week 3 game. I picked Buffalo to go to the Super Bowl, but stuff like that, it leads me to pause now. Like, do they have the infrastructure? Like, it's not all about talent. Some of it is, what's your infrastructure for you to be able to succeed? And I will talk about some other games, I believe, where I can kind of talk about the infrastructure where at least it feels different.
Okay. And we'll get into another matchup here. We'll move over to the Kansas City and Indianapolis Colts matchup. But before we do that, to put a bow on the Miami Buffalo matchup, Tua appeared to have an injury, serious injury there for a moment, and he went into the concussion protocol situation. As you saw, if you saw some of the highlights, he did come back, but after he got tackled, I think he was stumbling or kind of fell back down, and I think they're saying that it was a back situation, but it could have been, but he did go in, and so the NFL wants to take a closer look at that situation and investigate more on the process there, on the concussion protocol process there. You being a football player, Zach, what was your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not a doctor. If the Dolphins say it was a back, if Tua says it was a back, I'm gonna take it that it was a back. Like the NFL put stuff in place for this. If the NFL protocols are not working, that's something the NFL needs to look at. But once again, I just kind of think this is an optics thing for the NFL, that they're going off of optics. But what's your process? And you being a referee, processes matter. So we can speculate, and everybody can speculate that it was a concussion, but he played pretty good for it to be a concussion. So we'll go off of I will take the Dolphins for their word that it was a back. He just grabbed his head and it looked like something else that we're not used to. But as I said, none of us are doctors. And if the Dolphins, I like to believe that it's not worth it for the Dolphins to put a player back in when the guy's under concussion. So that's about the best I could do, is defer to them. It doesn't look good, but just because it don't look good doesn't mean that it was a concussion.
Okay, your thoughts on Kansas City losing to the Colts?
Tyreek Hill not being there affects how your defense. Like it, I know Kelsey dropped the ball at the end zone. Everybody's gonna look at that, but KC usually mollywops people. Indy just got mollywopped by Jacksonville. It's gonna look different for KC now. Doesn't mean they can't win the Super Bowl, but you're not gonna dial up all of the big plays that you used to dial up, and it's easier to guard Travis Kelce now. Like just because a guy runs fast, don't mean that he's a good football player. Tyreek Hill is a fast football player that was a good football player, and this type of stuff is what happens. I'm not sure if we got the video for Eric Bieniemy and Pat Mahomes going into halftime.
Oh man, talk about that one, Zach.
But Pat Mahomes had a conversation with Eric Bieniemy because he wanted to maybe throw a Hail Mary into the end zone, do some other things or whatever. And this is where the sports talking heads or people, fanboys, whatever, say, yeah, you got to let Pat Mahomes do this, and you got to let quarterbacks do this, and you go with your guy, and blah blah blah. And Eric Bieniemy he understood they were out of sorts. Let's go in at halftime, reassess, and come back out. And Pat Mahomes talked about it after the game, but Pat Mahomes had a whole second half to get more points, and he did get more points. He got 3. But nobody's going to talk about that. But he got a whole 3 other points when he had 30 more minutes to get more points. So I just got to go back. We deify these quarterbacks, and then nobody ever holds them accountable. Really, quarterbacks are kind of becoming like NBA stars, that they get all of the glory, and unless they're an NBA star that you kind of don't like or has gotten on your bad side, they don't get any of the negativity. And I haven't heard anybody say too much about Pat Mahomes as far as with that, but had plenty of time. Aaron Rodgers has had plenty of opportunities, and whenever they get more of these opportunities, it ain't been more points going up on the board. So that's one Kansas City let get away. Good job for the Colts. Shocked the Colts were able to steal one, but that that's why football is weird, because sometimes you'll drop one, say, against the Jags, or like how they had to tie, against the Texans. And then you get a game against Kansas City that if you looked at the schedule, because I ain't picking to win it, that you wouldn't get picked to win. I'd say Kansas City has some things that they need to work out, and they've been living off of maybe reputation for at least the past 2 years. And they got to go back out there and show other teams, that they're still the big bad wolf or whatever, if they are.
All right. Okay. I don't have much to say about that game. You covered pretty much everything that needed to be said there. They did have a kicking situation. That's an issue there. I know they had some missed field goals and injured field goal kickers, so they got to figure out that situation. But because now, as you stated, I mean, without Hill, everything matters more now. So those missed field goals, opportunities, things like that, they come back to bite you when you're not as potent as you once were. So yeah, the next game on our list is. Go ahead.
Before you go, real quick, just chime in, and this is where I go back to NBA situation. Think of LeBron, and you hit on this quite often, and Charles Barkley's hit on it. How much help do you need, LeBron? And Mahomes, when Mahomes is getting all these commercials, and Nick Wright is telling you that he's going to be the greatest quarterback ever, and they're going to win 7 straight, I don't ever hear about the kicker. I don't ever hear about offensive tackles. But now, like what you just said, not having a kicker is causing you to lose the game. But if a guy is all of this stuff, when we giving them flowers and as said, throwing parades for them, and they get all the commercials and everything, if we ain't mentioning that stuff then, and I know you ain't doing it, but people should be making excuses for him. Not Patrick Mahomes. If your kicker is hurt, go score 50. Go for 2 every time.
Well, they're going to have a chance to redeem themselves against Tampa, so we'll see how that goes. If they play the game, by the way, based on the weather.
Oh, they're going to play. Look, they're going to play the game. So it's just a matter if that's going to be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They playing the game.
That'd be nice. All right. Under unfortunate circumstances, but yeah. Oh man, Jacksonville. Okay, this is one of the games I believe you listed too that we need to that you want to speak on. But the Jaguars, man, they went on the road. The 18 game road losing streak has been snapped. And if you look at Trevor Lawrence and Peyton Manning, the similarities here: 0-9, and then win against the opponent that they finally got the win against. It's the Chargers, and then it was week 3. So there's some irony here. What was your thoughts on the Jags winning at the Los Angeles Chargers, and what do you have to say more about the Chargers situation?
Well, I think first you can look at that, and you probably feel this way too. You picked the Jags to make the playoffs last year. Like, you looked at their roster and you thought it was a pretty good roster. I guess what you didn't take into account was the head coach. It's obvious Doug Peterson, whichever, but head coach that won a Super Bowl for Philadelphia, first time in the Super Bowl era, is a much better coach than what Urban Meyer was. And I mean, and that should go without saying, but I think people, when you say the names, they wouldn't think that. And he's had a tremendous effect on this team. And now when you start putting their pieces together, running back situation is good for them. They have 2 guys that are getting it done. Lawrence is better. I don't think Lawrence is perfect because he gave up an interception up in Washington that one of them throws. Once again, you don't do that, possibly you win the game. But they have improved. They have 2 pass rushers. If you want to go, my guy from Georgia, Walker. Then they have a linebacker, the other Josh Allen out of Kentucky. So
Yeah.
so they can get some pressure on you. They went out, and I will be honest, I thought $18 million was a lot of damn money for Christian Kirk. And he's getting all these other wide receivers paid because he got so much. But so far, Christian Kirk has helped their offense. So they have a good chance to win the AFC South, and good for them. Now, not that the division is strong or anything like that, but this is a good for a young team with young players to be moving forward with guys that are in positions that they haven't necessarily been in. And on the other side, it's the same old. And I said it. And Justin Hebert, he gets all of this love. Everybody tells you how great he is. And he's at the receiving end of another L. Now, this one is more disturbing because the offense had injuries. Justin Hebert, he had bruised ribs or whatever. But I didn't think the defense was injured. But defense gave up a lot of points, and they paid a lot of money to be better on defense. So we're kind of getting to the point where Hebert is about to get his second coach fired. And I won't be mad because I don't think the first coach should have got fired because of I thought he should have got maybe last year to kind of prove things with him, but they brought in a new guy, Staley. And let's see. I told you that Hebert was going to be that I didn't have faith in the Chargers. They'd be last just because no faith in Hebert. The Raiders are doing their best to make sure they're not last. And McDaniels, I'll throw my mistake out there. I gave the Raiders too much credit. McDaniels seems to be a damn tire fire or grease fire at the damn head coaching position. And I wondered, are the Raiders having buyer's remorse that they should have kept is it Basacci? I think they had last year that took over for Gruden and maybe gave him at least a year to see what he can do. I believe both of us, and I think probably everybody that talked about the AFC West said the AFC West was going to be the best division in football. That's not the case right now.
Yeah, it's looking shaky over there in the West, man. Speaking of that West, you already brought up the Chargers. The Raiders are 0-3, and I believe they're the only 0-3 team in the NFL. And the stats say that if you're 0-3, that you're not going to the playoffs. So, the Raiders, man, with this slow start, man, is rough. they did fall short again this week. I believe it was to Tennessee. So that was a good bounce back for the Titans. On Thursday night, the Steelers, they lost to the Browns. And the quarterback situation there's a little talk there about bringing in Pickett, but right now they're going with Trubisky. What do you think Mike Tomlin's going to do with that quarterback situation over there? Is he going to let him roll with Trubisky or bring in the young guy?
Well, if he hasn't played Pickett yet, it's probably because he doesn't feel his time. And I think he's kind of alluded to also that it's not all on Trubisky. And the great thing about Mike Tomlin, he's not going to panic. So I'm going to defer to Mike Tomlin that the decision he makes will be the best. But I will say, even with Pickett, depending on what Green Bay is going to do with Aaron Rodgers, I think the Steelers should try to make a serious offer to acquire Aaron Rodgers in the offseason, because they got to get the quarterback situation fixed. It's not all on the quarterback. Their wide receivers aren't that great. Like they have serviceable wide receivers, but they're not great. And I like Harris out of Alabama, but he's not he's not like a all pro running back type, say Derrick Henry, that you can build your offense around. So they have a lot of pieces that need to make things better and that you can point the finger at. And the O-line ain't the greatest right now either. But Trubisky, I thought Trubisky would be more competent at the quarterback position, especially with a stable organization like the Steelers, and that's not the case. So they're going to have to figure something out.
Yes, sir.
And usually what the quarterback is the easiest. Like, it's easy to fire the head coach to try and make a change, and then it's easy to change the quarterback out to try and get a spark for the team. Tomlin ain't getting fired. So I think we know what the next step is.
Yes, sir. All right. Yep. And Cincinnati, they bounced back. They didn't want to fall too deep in a hole, which was good. They get Miami this upcoming Thursday. There's going to be a whiteout Thursday night. They're going to wear their white helmets, their all white uniform. That should be a nice look. Maybe they get maybe they get a victory that week. We'll talk about that later. But Monday night, let's shift back to the NFC East. Dallas Cowboys without Dak, another victory. That's back to back without Dak. So they were able to take out the Giants 23-16 with Rush at the quarterback position. So, man, what do you think this says about Dak Prescott, Zach?
Well, to me, it says less about Dak and more about the offensive coordinator. And I'll go back to, these quarterbacks are getting treated like NBA superstars. And you can see it on some, like NBA. You got guys out there, say a Harden or Kyrie Irving, and they go out there and they'll get stats and everything looks good and they give you these highlights, but the team gets to the playoff. Well, either they don't get the team to the playoffs or their team doesn't win much, and kind of nobody points the finger at them. They just look at all those great numbers. I think same thing for the Cowboys. Like Cooper Rush, being kind, is limited as a quarterback. So like, you don't look at him and think, oh my God, I can do all this stuff. You understand, or the OC understands, the team understands, we need to play complementary football now, i.e. we're going to run some passing routes shorter that, keep him out of harm's way. We're going to run the ball more, which they did with both running backs. And then we're going to rely on our defense to keep us in the game, and we just try and be timely, which is what they did last night. Like, they were, they just made timely plays. What was, I think 6-3 at halftime, and they just kind of stuck with the formula. But if Dak was there, they'd be trying to sling the ball all over the place, throw it 40, 50 times. And reality is, they probably should have this type of game plan with Dak. And I think of your former quarterback in Seattle, Russell Wilson, and that's kind of what Seattle did. Like, Wilson threw the ball. Wilson got to be a hero. They just didn't say, hey, we need you to be a hero 60 snaps a game.
Right.
We just want you to be a hero maybe 20, 25 snaps a game. And that's all the Cowboys are doing, and good for them. they are holding serve. And I kind of thought they were chaotic. It is funny that injury to Dak probably has helped them out and kept them in this with Philadelphia, because I actually think if you told me Philadelphia and Dallas play right now today, I think Dallas is more competitive in that game than they would be with Dak there, because they're going to have like you used to play on Madden, used to be so damn frustrated, but you would do ball control.
Yeah.
And run the clock down or whatever. But it makes a difference, because now when you have less possessions, if you turn the ball over, you do something, it makes it causes a problem for the other team. And the Giants lost the game. I can't remember. It's in the second half. I want to say in the fourth quarter, they had 2 plays in a row. One play, they threw it deep to threw a medium pass to one of the wide receivers. He dropped it and fumbled it, didn't secure it. They came back through another pass. Receiver dropped it again. And then they had to go from that. They punted the ball. Dallas had a big punt return. And I want to say this is when they were down 7. That was it for them. And it didn't seem like much, but that little sequence right there lost the game for you because you wasn't sound. And that's what I'm saying about the Cowboys. Just continue to do the sound things that you did. And I know Lamb dropped a pass early in the game, but for the most part, Cowboys played pretty sound football.
Yeah. He made up for it too with an excellent catch in the end zone. Man, that was tremendous.
You know what? I cared, and looking at it, I cared less about the catch that he got it with. Like him getting it with the one hand was a thing, but if you know, and we don't have the highlight, but where he was at in the end zone, getting both feet down while you were trying to get it with the one hand and get it in is what I thought was phenomenal. That right, because whether he catches it or not, if you don't get his feet down, it's out. When I saw it the first time, I was like, "There's no way he got his feet down." And then when they showed the replay, excellent catch. Like these receivers, and I won't be the old guy with this. These receivers have some great receivers, and DBs have some great ball skills now in comparison to what it was back in the day.
Yep. All right. Well, you brought up Russell Wilson a little bit, and we're going to talk about one of his former teams. And it pains me on this one, but it's kind of a bittersweet thing because you remember I told you the only victory I want Seattle to have this year is the first one, and that was against Russell Wilson. Yeah. But a game effort, but fell short to the Falcons at home. By the way, Atlanta came into Seattle and beat my Seahawks 27-23. Patterson looked good in the running game, but at the same time, man, Seattle's defense is not there, man, and it's going to be a long season. But that's okay because then we can come back and draft properly and rebuild. So this is all part of the plan, if you will. And going to Russell Wilson, able to get a victory on Sunday night against the 49ers, and the score was 11-10. 11-10 on that one, and it was a barn burner, if you will. And the last time it was 10-11 in the NFL was 2008. And it was between the Steelers and the Chargers. So the last time was in 2008 for that to happen. The MVPs of the game were the punters, and just look at all the yardage. It looked like a shootout. You know what I'm saying, with all the punting yards there, but there was a ton of yards as far as the punting game goes. So shout out to the punters.
You're not wrong when you look at that graphic. They were key in helping their teams. Like look at the inside the 20.
Yes,
especially that 6. That's big time stuff. That's the barbershop guys. They go talk about that because of course they don't know about the punters. But that stuff right there is what helps you win games. And a lot of time, the Jimmy G. If you look at why Denver had 11, Jimmy G stepped out the back of the end zone because they were backed up. And that safety ended up being a difference because if he didn't have the safety, they would have, when they scored a touchdown, they would have probably kicked the extra point, and it's 10-10.
Exactly. There you go. And field position and all that. That's all part of the game. And that's why, we could talk about it another day, but overtime, that's why I like the NFL overtime for the most part, because it incorporates all facets of the game. The punt game, the kick return game, the punt return game, everything, the kickoffs, the whole strategy, everything is still in play, and it is all important. And I like how they keep that in the game and overtime. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, 11-10. That was that game. We're gonna take a short break, and we're gonna come back and talk about two. We're gonna talk about three excellent quarterbacks. Two of them, I think all three of them at some point will be in the Hall of Fame, but we'll talk about that in just
I'm
a moment.
interested to hear it. Well, I think I know who two of them are.
Yep. But we'll definitely talk about that when we come back on the other side, Zach.
All right.
Hi, I'm Latanya. I'm the owner of Heavily Spun Mobile. I've been in this business 19 years plus. If you're in dire need of a massage for achy muscles, back, neck, shoulder, hip, legs, feet, come on down and schedule an appointment with me. You can't go wrong. There's nothing wrong with taking care of you because no one's going to be able to take care of you. I'm located at 2484 Ingleside Avenue, and that's in Building 8, and that's in Macon, Georgia. Again, you can go online to Heavily Spun Mobile to schedule your future appointment, or you can reach out to me at 478-747-9231. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, Latanya, we appreciate it.
All right. We thank Heavily Spun Mobile for supporting the Sports Brothers. All right. Left off talking about we was going to come back and discuss a couple quarterbacks, and one that comes to mind looks like he's going to be a future Hall of Famer if he keeps this up is Lamar Jackson. I mean, come on, man. This guy is just killing it right now. He is really doing damage out there, and he is playing without a contract too, man. It's some risky business, but I think it's going to pay off here. 326 total yards and 5 touchdowns, man, a monster. He's been on a roll, Zach.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you with the risky business part. It's football. If he's worried about getting hurt, he should be playing football anyway. And I think, I'm going to go opposite of you. I look, every time he goes out and performs like this, the number goes up. And the only thing I'd say, and they probably know better than me, wait until wait until the kid in Cincinnati, who's another young guy. If you want to go Tua, wait until that wave of QBs gets their extensions. Definitely Bear. Don't get a contract before Bear. And I'm gonna kind of throw a number out there. Is Lamar Jackson gonna get $60 million a year, Mr. 411? Is he gonna get $60 million a year and look and get $300 million guaranteed?
Man,
or $60 million a year, and let's say because 250 of that $300 million guaranteed because the new TV contracts will come out. This is perfect. Even if he unless he's gonna get a Joe Theismann injury, what does he have to lose? Because if he tears an ACL, he's coming back anyway. This is a great play by him.
But it's definitely working right now, and man, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens at the end. But man, he is definitely. If we had to go ahead and say who's the front runner for MVP, in my opinion, is Lamar Jackson.
I would go with you because he don't have any. Tell me what weapons he has. Andrews, and I was talking about this with Rob. Andrews is a nice tight
Shout
end.
out Rob.
But you know who Andrews reminds me of? Say he's not even Mark Bavaro or Todd Christensen from back in the day. And he's not as good. Andrews ain't as good. Andrews is he's more like I was gonna say Cross from San Francisco or maybe Russ France. I feel like he's something like that. And I know I'm throwing names out there.
You going way back too.
But he's a good tight end. He's a Pro Bowl tight end. And I know he has, but he doesn't feel like Travis Kelce. He doesn't feel like Gronk. He doesn't feel like Tony Gonzalez, where he's just this huge mismatch.
Or Gates.
And then and he's just and then you throw in the wide receivers like Duvernay. Duvernay's probably gonna get some money, but Duvernay's okay. Like I wouldn't be afraid to guard Duvernay. The guy that Rob once again likes out of Minnesota, Bateman. Bateman's okay, but I'll say once again, I wouldn't be afraid to line up and guard Bateman. Like we'll guard you, and they running backs. I'll be honest. I think they got the running back out of Ohio State, but I can't name their running backs. Now, typically, I can name your players. So,
yeah, they just have a lot of, running back situation is a mess. We talked about that on the fantasy show, between Hill and Dobbins, and, you just never know who's going to run the ball there. Right now, it looks like Jackson is, but, yeah, he makes it work. He's that good. He's that much of a mismatch right now. On the field, kind of gives me an Allen Iverson type effect. You know what I mean? Like he just, since we're bringing up basketball players too on this show, on this episode, Zach, yeah, he gives me that kind of feel. Allen Iverson in Philadelphia, type of feel. When he had Mutombo and all those guys, like Eric Snow and players like that, more of a gritty type team. But he was the guy that stirred everything. So he's really doing it, man. And I'm actually excited, man. About seeing this thing.
I'm very happy for him. And I still don't think he's like this great polished passer. But the reality is your job as a quarterback is to put points on the board. And his style of play and the offense they run, he does that. And if you compare his situation to the Miami situation, compare it to the Chargers situation, he don't have the tools that those guys have.
No, not at all.
Compare it to Minnesota. He ain't got the tools that guy up in Minnesota got. So I wouldn't pay any of these quarterbacks over.
His best weapon is his best weapon is the field goal kicker, Tucker.
And no, you're trying to be tongue in cheek, but you really ain't, because that's the truth.
Yeah.
And as I said, I wouldn't want to pay any of these guys over $40 million, but if you're gonna pay a QB $50-60 million, he's proven that he's the one guy that can really go in there and say, hey, like, you give me less stuff and I can still make things happen for you. And he's doing it.
Yep. And before we talk about the other two quarterbacks that should be future Hall of Famers, we have been mentioning NBA players. And I think it's because, Zach, coming up on the next hour of the Sports Brothers, that's why we want you to hit that notification button. We'll have Rod in the studio, and we're going to talk about the 2022-2023 NBA rankings. We're going to dive into the top 5. Some of those images you see right there, some of those players, they should be in the top 5. And,
at least one of them.
But yeah, we definitely going to dive into that. So, don't go nowhere. Grab your snack as soon as this episode over, because then you got to get right back out here so you can come in and check out Rod, because Rod, man, he brings the fire, man. We love Rod.
Yes, he does.
So we're going to see him on here too.
I'll be ready for him to critique my top 5.
Yeah. Can't wait for that, man. But let's jump back to the quarterbacks. Okay, 2 other quarterbacks, obviously, they're heading to the Hall of Fame, is Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. And there they are embracing after this 14-12 victory by the Packers. Happened to catch the end of this game. And man, it was an exciting ending. And but let's go ahead and talk about this one, because this was on the table in our production meeting. So the floor is yours, Zach.
Everything that I told you about, say, Josh Allen, and that stuff kind of, it just seems like something, when they get in the game, the little things lead to big things. And then you got the OC Dorsey slamming his laptop and all this other stuff. That's like the anti-Tom Brady. Tom Brady just, people gonna get mad when I say this, but Tom Brady just turns water into wine. Like, got all three receivers out. And look, this shouldn't be no surprise. You said this for a while, and I hope all these people that said don't trade Julio back when he was in Atlanta are sending you an apology. But you already know Julio will be out. And I heard somebody on the radio say the other day, I'm gonna just put Julio as questionable for the rest of the season, because he's been questionable for the past 3 years. So I'm gonna assume he's questionable. but he's missing Julio. He's missing Godwin. Of course, he's missing Antonio Brown. Gronk is not on the team. Damn it, who's the big wide receiver that got in the fight with Lattimore and got himself suspended? Out of A&M. But big wide receiver. He gets himself suspended for a game. And all Brady does is, okay, lose the game. We can't, we can't get anything together. It looked like Green Bay was gonna run away with this thing, and that Tampa had no chance. And then, as always, you get down to the end of the game, and a Tom Brady team has a chance to win. Like, it's just amazing how he can get his team in a position to win, like, no matter what. And I can go back to the game a few years ago in Green Bay. Didn't play a great game in Green Bay. Green Bay, I want to say he had either 2 interceptions, 3 interceptions. I know Green Bay got 3 turnovers, and you still find yourself on the winning side. One of the better games I thought Brady played way back in the day is when I believe it's when the Broncos played your Seahawks. Or actually, it might have been when the Broncos went to the play the Carolina Panthers. He got hit so many times that day in Denver. Denver really beat him up, and then yet still at the end of the game had a chance to win. So this is what Brady does. They'll figure it out. I'm happy for Todd Bowles that he actually it won't seem like it. This is a good team for Todd Bowles, the coach. I don't want to hear any excuses out of anything with him or whatever. Great situation for him to have Brady, because Brady's going to put a Band-Aid on a lot of things. And on the other side, Aaron Rodgers, he's going to be one of those guys, and I can't even kind of think of an NBA guy that you're going to think of him and you're going to think he's great or whatever. But if I say Aaron Rodgers, you probably don't think Larry Bird. I don't think you would think Kobe Bryant. I don't think that you would think Michael Jordan. Like, he's in a kind of, like, I don't think you think Isaiah Thomas if I say him. I want to say Clyde Drexler, but he's probably a slice above a Clyde Drexler type guy. So I can't come up with a good NBA comparison. But Aaron Rodgers has all of the talent in the world. But when you get to the end of the day, his accolades aren't going to be there. And if Tampa Bay doesn't have a delay game, they probably get the 2-point conversion, goes to overtime. And my guess is they somehow find a way to lose this game. So that's kind of my take from it. And Aaron Rodgers needs desperately to find a way to win another Super Bowl so he can maybe put himself in another category.
Yes, sir. And in other actions, that the Bengals defeated the Jets.
Yes, they did.
The Panthers defeated New Orleans at home. The Bears defeated the Texans at home, right?
Justin Fields.
Yeah, that's another victory there. And then the Rams beat the Cardinals. So that's the other games that were on the slate as well. But man, what a week, man. Week 3. Like I said, a lot of upsets, but a good week of football. And we wanted to dive into a lot of that, and we did. We did what we said we was going to do. Now, we have another segment, Zach, before we get out of here, because we have to jump to another studio. I mean, our offices are huge, Zach. We got to go from studio to studio, man. So it'll be studio 2 for you, and then studio 3 for me. Okay. But man, next week we're going to go ahead and take a look into week 4 here, and let's go ahead and do that. All right. So with week 4, here are all the underdogs that won this past week. And before we dive into week 4, but look at all those underdogs right there, Zach. It's amazing to see all that, man, going on. But yes, we're going to take a moment here, and we're going to go into our new segment, Zach, and that's our NFL Survivor picks. So we're going to get the information on that out to everyone who plays in Survivor. And before we dive into that, I think you play it, right?
I used to. I was eliminated last week because the Jets did what they don't do. So thank you, Jets, for not winning or for winning last week and then going back to your normal self this week.
Wow, absolutely. All right, they're your team, the Jets, with your favorite quarterback.
Not yet. He's almost back.
Your namesake. And then there are some of the matchups for week 4 that you can see there. You have the down at the bottom, I believe Steelers a favorite there over Lacey's Jets there, but there's the matchups for next week.
I'm interested in that Baltimore Buffalo game. That will tell us a lot about Baltimore.
It will. Absolutely. That is the game of the week, in my opinion. You know, that's the big one there. I'm curious to see if the Jaguars are for real. I mean, they lost to the Commanders on the road. They did bounce back with a big win over the Chargers. They won. There was some circumstances there, but they did win. They did look tough. So I want to see what they do now as they go back and play another NFC East opponent on the road. They're going to play the Eagles.
And I just want to say the Jaguars might say, and we want to see if the Eagles are for real, because the Eagles ain't beat nobody yet. Let's not crown. And like I don't want Mr. 401 Senior getting mad at me, but I ain't giving the Eagles a cookie because they beat Kirk Cousins and had a dog fight with the Lions.
Well, we're going to find out either way because they had to play it in a couple of days. Yes, the survivor pool, Zach. And we're going to go ahead now and check out the calculator with the week 4 survival pool conversation.
Greetings and salutations, sports fan. This is the calculator coming in with a little quick tidbit for you survivor players out there. Yes, if you were listening to this and you want a survivor pick, congratulations. From what I have seen, there has been an overall 78% drop with all the upsets and tumultuous beginnings to the NFL seasons. I'm just going to give you 2 tips that you can use for the rest of this year if you happen to be still alive. First tip, early on. In other words, the first 5 games of the years, stay away from interdivisional matchups. Teams know each other. However, the books and other people do not know what's going on. Wait for some more time to go in before you pick any type of interdivisional matchups. In other words, don't pick your Saints, Falcons type games, even if one team's a lot better than the other. Don't pick a Houston Indy early on. We want to see how this plays out, how teams, and it also takes new members to get familiar with things going on with their teams. We just saw Indianapolis throw duds 2 games in a row and then looked unbeatable against Kansas City. So stay away from any interdivisional matchups early on. Second, tidbit is don't look too far ahead. You can look a little bit ahead, but don't be looking saying I don't want to take the Buffalo Bills because they have a great matchup in week 15. The name of the game is still to survive and advance. Okay, and the last bit, follow your injury reports, follow the practice reports. I just had a week 3 when I was following my early pick in the early game. I really like Kansas City against Indianapolis. Like I said, Indianapolis looked terrible. Kansas City looked great. Well, then practice reports came in. Leonard was coming back for Indianapolis. Matt Ryan was getting 2 of his receivers back on the Indy side. And so that's why I said, okay, if that is some trouble, I said, let's pivot. And then in the end of the week, I've switched from Kansas City to the Chargers. And Chargers going against the Chargers. Oh, they were going against Jacksonville. Okay. Jacksonville, a perennial loser. However, I got a practice report on Saturday saying Herbert was not 100%. Looking like Jacksonville, nobody was injured on there. Their offensive line for Jacksonville was doing better. So I said, okay, got to pass it. I said, so the best thing was, hey, I'm going to go. My last thing was the Cincinnati game. That's like Cincinnati knew Cincinnati couldn't go 0-3, and hey, they were playing the Jets, and the Jets were probably still spent off their week 2 come from behind miracle against Cleveland. So I pivoted to Cincinnati, and that won me the game, so I'm still surviving. So let's look at the week 4. I got a surprise. I have a team that I really like this week. I have they've been playing pretty good, even though they had a meltdown last game just past Sunday, but I don't see it. I'm going with your Detroit Lions. Yes, I know that sounds dirty in a survivor pool, but hey, they pass great. They look, and they're at home. Jamal Williams, yes, DeAndre Swift not play, but they have Craig Reynolds and Jamal Williams, who are not quite as dynamic as DeAndre Swift, but definitely capable backups. And Jared Goff is playing phenomenal this week. But hey, the real reason I like them is they're playing the Seattle Seahawks. And yes, Seattle Seahawks have been competitive 2 of the 3 weeks. Both those weeks were at home, but come on, they lost to the Falcons last week. Their only win was the weekend opener against what looks to be a very average Denver game. And then they got blown out in week 2, not even competitive. So I don't see how Seattle can contain Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions have a superstar cover corner. They're going to try and take out Metcalf, and I think that will be able to cover them long enough so that they can create a pass rush. So take your Detroit Lions early on. Again, monitor your practice reports, but I don't see anything coming in to sway my pick. So week 4 pick, the Detroit Lions against the Seattle Seahawks. Also want to let you guys know, click subscribe and get notifications so that you can, like I said, I'll be following practice reports and giving it every time I'm on that I'm asked to. I also want to plug, let you guys know about the fantasy football show on Tuesdays. Again, click notify, subscribe. We want you guys to know. I talked about DeAndre Swift. That's the stuff we talk about. Injuries that you can do and prepare for if you are getting, in a bind, especially with bye weeks will be coming shortly. So yes, click subscribe, notify to the fantasy. Click subscribe to the Thursday show of Crossing the Lines. I will go more in depth to more picks. But with that said, the calculator is out. Hope everybody has a great week.
All right.
Yes, sir. All right. We thank the calculator.
I see he's picking on Seattle.
Yeah, I see that. And, again, the more the merrier. Let's lose again this week. And a competitive loss. Let's have a competitive loss.
Agreed. Atlanta lost by winning.
Exactly. Crazy as that sounds, but yes. All right. Well, Zach, man, that's it, man. We got to jump to the next studio. We got to catch up with Rod and get to that NBA top 5 conversation, man.
Yes, we do.
All right. Well, for Zach, I'm Mr. 411. We are the Sportz Brothers. Thank you all for tuning in. And
appreciate it.
Catch us in about another 3 minutes, all right? Sportz Brothers out.